Hey guys, this one's gonna be a bit of a strange video because I'm putting together some thoughts that are gonna make some people really angry. But I'm sitting here pondering the 2020 election as I'm wont to do. By the way, my hair's gone. Check it out. I feel so cold. I can wear hats again though. But I'm realizing with this whole super delegate threat thing going on, I see two main concerns with that. There's a slight outside possibility that a Pete Buttigieg Warren type might pull enough of the mm, establishment vote, and the super delegates might be brazen enough to try to just straight rig the election, railroad it so hard, and have a repeat of 2016. That's certainly a concern. To me, my bigger concern, really thinking about this, I'm realizing, is right now I think Tulsi and Byrne are running away with it. And that might sound crazy to you, but Tulsi's number two in web traffic, and she's really picking it up in the polls. She's been the number one most Googled after every debate, and I think she's got a really good chance of winning New Hampshire. She just moved to New Hampshire, which I think is also a great move because everyone in Hawaii already knows who she is, right? And New Hampshire's an early primary state. She could become a senator of New Hampshire. That sounds cool, but if Tulsi and Byrne do run away with it, because let's be honest, no one's getting all that excited for Biden. Some people in Iowa are excited for Pete, but he's not really got much sway outside of that. And once Biden's gone, pretty much Byrne and Tulsi are the only people that are appealing to um, anyone who's actually looking for an authentic candidate and minorities. And and Yang, I'll give you Yang. He's also the three of them really though are the ones that are going to pull in enough people to actually win 2020. And there's no point in voting for someone who can't win 2020. And I think a lot of people realize that. As such, I think the most likely thing to happen is going to be Tulsi and Byrne really running away with this thing. And I think realistically, a lot of the Yang Yang and a lot of Burners would absolutely love to vote for Tulsi. The biggest question in people's minds is, will they let her win? Can she win? And do enough people know about her, basically? So if she really wins a few of these early states, people are going to be empowered and she's going to kill it. But in any case, I think it's going to be close between her and Byrne, which is awesome. My issue is looking at this from the perspective of a super delegate, a corrupt establishment super delegate, a kingmaker. You get to choose between Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Who do you think they're going to pick? And, you know, if Byrne picks Tulsi as his VP, I'm way down for 12 to 16 years of Gabbard. However, I have a sneaking suspicion he may pick Nira or Nina instead, and I have a problem with that because neither of them are particularly no more war, and you can't really give me a solid justification why either of them are more qualified or more deserving of the position of VP than Tulsi. And we need no more war. And we need someone who is bringing that aloha, assertive aloha, truth lance that Tulsi is, quite frankly. Like, Nina and Nira both propagate a lot of establishment narratives, as does Byrne. He's been making a lot of compromises in 2016, and to me, him picking someone other than Tulsi as his VP would be the ultimate establishment compromise, and I think a lot of Americans would be really bummed about that and wouldn't show up. Do I think he could beat Donald Trump? Probably. But at the end of the day, he would be more electable with Tulsi at his back. And arguably, I think Tulsi would be more electable against Donald Trump than Bernie, period. But we all know that the DNC would clearly rather work with someone who's willing to, at least sometimes, propagate their narratives and is actually, oddly, very, very complicit in the Tulsi media blackout, which is just maddening beyond all reason. Because realistically, if Byrne really wanted to help the progressive movement, he could say one statement that would turn this entire election upside down. Tulsi Gabbard and I are the only two people on this stage who are championing single payer Medicare for all. And then Tulsi could chime in and say, and my plan says that you can keep your private insurance if you want, so you can just take that, we're going to take away your private insurance argument and shove it up your behind. If Byrne said that, 2 million Americans would be like, oh, well, that's awesome. And it might make him lose a few votes to Tulsi Gabbard. So I see how it benefits Bernie Sanders to um, say, I'm the only one standing up for Medicare for all. But you're not, dude. Single payer is what we've been demanding since, what, 2008 plus? I don't know how long. How long you been doing it, Jimmy Dore? Let me know. Um, and that got me really thinking. I realized, you know, Biden is not gonna. No one's gonna show up to caucus for Biden. He's basically given up on New Hampshire, and he's not doing well in Nevada. So he's counting on South Carolina and later to carry him through. I'm sorry that people aren't that interested in Joe Biden. He's toast. Warren went from a 25% candidate to a 9% candidate. You can ask Kamala Harris how that goes. You don't want to be losing ground in coming into December. That's not where you want to be in the presidential race with way too many candidates on the field. Pete just had many holes shot into his boat, and even if he has a decent chunk of Iowa, which I kind of don't necessarily believe, he's not going to get very far past that. So who are we really left with? Tom Steyer? That's funny. No, we're left with those three again. Byrne, Tulsi, and Yang. Did I forget anybody? Amy Klobuchar? No. No, it's Byrne, Tulsi, and Yang. Let's be honest. And we can't have Yang because he's going to reunify the press and he's not free Assange. Tulsi's got a better UBI than him anyway. And I'm happy to talk with you more about that. But I'm coming to realize that I can't be the only person who's smart enough to figure this out. Yeah, I pay attention, but, people with more money than anyone knows what to do with who have controlled our politics for years and years and years certainly pay attention. As such, it wouldn't surprise me if there are people shrewd enough to recognize that their establishment candidates just aren't selling in 2020, and they need to pick someone who is at least mildly progressive that is still willing to play ball with them. And they see how much of an impact the Hellraiser goddamn Clanton media bump had when, she went after Tulsi and Tulsi just tore her a new one. So now we have Obama saying he's going to say bad things about Bernie, but he didn't even actually say bad things. He just said he was going to say bad things. And then we have Hillary calling out Byrne by name, and my immediate thought is, well, if she's calling Bernie a Russian asset by name, one of the reasons Tulsi hasn't sent in a lawsuit yet is because Clinton didn't mention her by name. She did mention Byrne. Is Byrne going to sue the witch? I kind of doubt it. Is this going to give Tulsi fodder to sue her, though? Maybe. She could, lump Byrne's name into it, but Byrne would have to probably be willing to be okay with that. I don't know the details about suing someone over libel goes, but I do know that Clinton is a slippery one when it comes to, pinning him down into a court. Anyway, he did 39 rallies for her in 2016, while Tulsi left the DNC chair and said, this is rigged, this is nonsense. Burns still doesn't have a single soundbite or video clip where he says he was rigged out of 2016, so there are people like my aunt who didn't realize until, 5 weeks ago, that Byrne was rigged out of 2016 because, Byrne would have said something. He's not afraid to speak up against the establishment. And I'm coming to realize that in 2016, Byrne was the best option available. In 2020, he's most certainly not. And I would say he's even moved further to the right than he was in 2016, aside from his no more war comment in debate 5, but that's the first time I've heard him say anything that is seriously anti-war. Maybe on Joe Rogan? I'll have to go rewatch that one to confirm, but he's not talking about a lot of the realist, most important issues in the world right now. And I think he could be doing a lot more good for our planet if he used his bully pulpit and the 2 million plus people that are going to listen to every single word that he says to do what Tulsi does and really educate people on all the issues so that we can all become little politicians and little hellraisers able to, combat the trolls and spread truth. Imagine how much more powerful that would be if all the burners were talking about more of these serious issues, not just economics and free college and Medicare. Those are important things, certainly. Housing, certainly important, but foreign policy is very important too. We are destroying the world. Our climate policy is very important too. And Burns says he has the most broad and far reaching climate policy, but he won't actually detail what it is. And when you look into it, it's the same climate policy as everyone else. Sustainable by 2050, using a carbon tax to promote wind, solar, geothermal, and nuclear. And a carbon tax is really counterproductive to actually making our planet cleaner and promoting greener production. Because if you make production more expensive here, where we actually do, a pretty good job of trying to produce our energy cleanly where we can, more of it gets shipped out to Africa and China where they burn a lot of coal to do their production. And it also allows the AI global censor state China to become an empire. Not great. So we can't cooperate with China on AI. We certainly need to address China's AI threat. But we also need to address their human rights abuses. Again, I'm just giving Yang a bit of a hard time here because I know he doesn't really like to actually talk about serious issues when it comes to China. Yeah, they took our intellectual property. We all know that. And they should not have done that. Hacking's a problem. But Yang also said, and this is the one that I think really ended Yang's campaign, in the fourth debate, and he doubled down by saying it again in the fifth debate, which I'm astounded that he did that. But in the fourth debate, he said, I will view further Russian hacking as open hostility, and I believe most Americans would agree with me. And, the Russian hacking was being done, at least some of the Russians that were doing the hacking, ended up being a company New Knowledge out of Georgia or Virginia or something. And so if the Russians aren't actual Russians, it just sounds like another WMDs in Iraq all over again. And most Americans would not agree that that's a good excuse to go to war when we hack the heck out of and rig the heck out of our own elections way worse than some Russians going on Facebook and talking to us. I think, if anything, the narrative of Russian bots on Twitter and Facebook, that myth has done more damage than the actual bots that were out there. Because now everyone is out there calling each other Russians and bots and disrespecting and not listening to what people have to say if they have something to say that just doesn't jive with what they are choosing to believe with their cognitive dissonance and burying their heads in the sand. I haven't actually met all that many legitimate bots. You can tell a bot because all you have to say is, in your next message, could you please use the word bacon? Or anything of that nature. It's very easy. But plenty of people like to throw those names around, and it's just counterproductive. So the guy that's really promoting it, who's saying, what would you do in your first call of Putin? Oh, I'd say I beat your man. And it's just like, they gave him a second chance to try to correct his record on Russia, and he just said the same dumb thing again. Hacking's a problem, but Yang also said, and this is the one that I think really ended Yang's campaign, in the fourth debate, and he doubled down by saying it again in the fifth debate, which...
to Putin and Russia.
Of course. We have to look at the chain of events. How did we get here? The fact is we're falling apart at home, so we voted in Donald Trump, and he's now led us down this dangerous path with erratic and unreliable foreign policy. We have to let Russia know, look, we get it. We've tampered with other elections, you've tampered with our elections, and now it has to stop. And if it does not stop, we will take this as an act of hostility against the American people. I believe most Americans would support me on this. But Russian hacking of our democracy is an illustration of the 21st century threats.
It was astounding, truly. But anyway, I guess to wrap it all up, moral of the story, Yang is definitely a corporatist, reunify the press tech plant. Burn, I think they're just being shrewd doing the math and recognizing that they would rather unite behind him than really let their entire empire crumble by putting Tulsi at the helm and letting her really do what JFK wanted to do and scatter the agency to the winds. Oh, it's gonna be sweet, guys. If what I think's gonna happen's gonna happen, we take New Hampshire, that gives us South Carolina, and after June, we retire. The entire Aloha Nation gets to sit back and watch Tulsi Gabbard's YouTube channel take 65% from Donald Trump. Because they've been Orange Man batting him and calling him a racist and a bigot and all this and that. Ooh, it's going to be really easy when the Aloha Patriot comes through and says, you know, everything that's wrong with our world. I mean, as a nerd who reads a lot of books, who has discovered that there's a lot of corrupt, messed up stuff in our world, I'm proud to say that Tulsi Gabbard has spoken about nearly all of it on stage, or at the very least has policy that indicates she's very clearly aware of the issue and how to fix it. The best climate policy, she's the only one who is lobbying for open education. Not just education for all, but broadening our education curricula so we stop learning the same history, economics, philosophy, and psychology and repeating the same mistakes because we fall for the same gambits because we haven't learned from our history because we don't actually learn history. She's the only one who is campaigning on that. She's the only one calling out the clowns. She's the only one suing the Oogle Overlords. And she's got a UBI, and she's single payer Medicare. And oh my gosh, if you want to see something truly a political miracle and history in the making, go watch her town hall in Rochester, New Hampshire. Because that was the stickiest political situation I have seen in a long time. And I truly believe that only Tulsi Gabbard could have come out of that without alienating the entire voting base that one of those two very extreme opinions was representing. And you know that with the way the media has been treating Tulsi, they wouldn't have let her hear the end of that if that had happened. That might have ended her, no, I don't know about ending her campaign, but it would have truly been a shit show. But she came out of that as a hero, really emphasizing to the entire nation why this Second Amendment argument is so difficult to get to the bottom of and make progress on, and how we're actually going to do it. Byrne couldn't have done that. Yang couldn't have done that. Trump couldn't have done that. Only Tulsi Gabbard could have won that room. There are people in this nation who will literally vote for no one else in 2020. There are Trumpers who will happily vote for Tulsi Gabbard. The Yang Gang will happily vote for Tulsi Gabbard by and large. And, you know, you'd have to be a crazy burner not to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, really, it'd have to be one of those ones of, well, it's his turn. And that sounds a whole lot like, vote for her because we need a female president, even if she's the queen of the warmongers. Like, no offense, Byrne, you're clearly not at all Hellraiser goddamn Clinton. But anybody who's trying to tell me that we need to vote for Bernie because it's his turn, I'm sorry, but he has a terrible record voting for war, bombings, terrors, and covert operations. And I get why. You have to make some compromises if you want to stay in Congress for 20 years. But we already know who's not going to make any compromise. And they keep complaining about how it's really a bummer that the only people who've qualified for the sixth debate are all white. We need to get some diversity up in here, and it's America's racist because we didn't like Kamala Harris and Booker. It's like, Tulsi Gabbard's waiting in the wings. She should have qualified because she just got 6% in that Boston Globe poll, which was done by the same polling agency that has some other qualifying polls, and it's the biggest newspaper in New Hampshire, so I don't know why that poll isn't qualifying, but I guess it's not qualifying, and 6% just isn't good enough. But in any case, they keep bellyaching about how there's no diversity on that stage, and they refuse to talk about Tulsi. It's kind of bonkers, kind of insane. But it's okay, because people see it. Whether she's on that stage or not, people are gonna see it. And she's gonna do great. And she's already eaten Yang's lunch, so at this point, all we gotta do is beat our Plan B Bernie. And when your Plan B is Bernie Sanders, you're doing pretty good. And if you're listening to this and saying, this guy is on some kind of something, and I don't know if I want to try some or stay the heck away, but he's nuts. I am clearly not seeing the same the same race he's seeing. Come talk to me, Demservative, on Twitter, or ask me some pertinent questions and I'll answer them, because I've been spending a lot of time paying attention to this race, and it is not the race that our mainstream media is telling you. I'll tell you that. One good resource to check out, I highly recommend you check out Stolt. Hashtag Stolt, at Stolt, whatever. Stolt YouTube. This guy does data analytics about who's getting the most web traffic in our race. Yang's been number one in web traffic for the last 12 months. So, clearly people know about Andrew Yang. His blackout is not very black. They're just not getting sold on it because he wants to reunify the press and he doesn't want to free Assange, and his UBI doesn't give the same universal basic income to people on food stamps that it does to the CEO and my neighbor and my mom and my brother and me, which is kind of defeats the point of a universal income. Tulsi's UBI is better, just saying. But the fact that Yang is number one in web traffic since day one and still isn't able to get 4% in a few polls says that they're not selling the reunify the press message very well. But the very interesting thing about that Stolt video was after the fourth debate, Yang has hit a huge nosedive, and I think it's two things. Tulsi picked up UBI, Yang admitted he would go to war with Russia, and also got hit on a few other key points from some of the other candidates.
In terms of updating how we look at monopolistic practices and setting, as Congressman O'Rourke said, rules for the road that match the challenges that we face today. And whether that's Amazon that is leveraging its size, I think, to help put small businesses out of business, and then at the same time shortchanging a lot of its workers, not paying them as they should, not giving them the benefits they should, or it's a number of other companies, big tech companies. We need to take a stronger stance when it comes to cracking down on monopolistic trade practices, and that's what I would do as president.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
the way we
Secretary.
can fight back. The best way we can fight back against big tech companies is to say our data is our property. Right now, our data is worth more than oil. How many of you remember getting your data check in the mail? It got lost. It went to Facebook, Amazon, Google. If we say this is our property and we share in the gains, that's the best way we can balance the scales against the big tech companies.
There's a bigger issue here.
Turning to women's reproductive rights. Ohio.
In truck stops, hotels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal. Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
Senator Warren, respond, please.
So, I understand that what we're all looking for is how we strengthen America's middle class. And actually, I think the thing closest to the universal basic income is Social Security. It's one of the reasons that I put forward a plan to extend the solvency of Social Security by decades and add $200 to the payment of every person who receives Social Security right now and every person who receives disability insurance right now. That $200 a month will lift nearly 5 million families out of poverty, and it will sure loosen up the budget for a whole lot more. It also has a provision for your wife, for those who stay home to do caregiving for children or for seniors, and creates an opportunity for them to get credit on their Social Security. So after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity.
Thank you, Senator
I
Warren.
see this as an important question about I want to understand the data on this.
Senator,
And
thank you very
I want to make
much.
sure we're responding to make this work.
Your time is
I
up. I want to
data.
give Congresswoman Gabbard a chance to respond.
Thank you. Really what this is about is getting to the heart of the fear that is well founded. As people look to this automation revolution, they look to uncertainty. They don't know how this is going to affect their jobs and their everyday lives. And I agree with my friend Andrew Yang. I think universal basic income is a good idea to help provide that security so that people can have the freedom to make the kinds of choices that they want to see. I think universal basic income is a good idea. I think universal basic income is a good idea. I think universal basic income is a good idea. Provide that security so that people can have the freedom to make the kinds of choices that they want to see. I agree with my friend Andrew Yang. I think universal basic income is a good idea to help provide that security so that people can have the freedom to make the kinds of choices that they want to see. This has to do with bad trade deals that we've seen in the past that have also driven fear towards people losing the way that they provide for their families. Really, what we need to do is look at how we can best serve the interests of the American people.
Senator Booker, one of the latest impasses in negotiations involves bringing jobs back from Mexico. As president, how would you convince GM to return production to the United States?
Well, first of all, the one point I wanted to make about the UBI conversation, and I hope that my friend Andrew Yang will come out for this, doing more for workers than UBI would actually be just raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It would put more money in people's pockets than giving them $1,000 a month. We have to start putting the dignity back in work. And number one, you start having trade deals, not like this thing that the president is trying to push through Congress right now that gives pharmaceutical companies and other corporations benefits and doesn't put workers at the center of every trade deal. We must make sure we are not giving corporate tax incentives for people to move jobs out of our country.
And I will be running that in my next video, but this one's already getting a little bit long, so thanks for tuning in, my dudes. Please like, share, make some comments, get this conversation going, and subscribe. I'll see you later. Thanks for tuning in. I love y'all, dudes. Don't let them skeptical skexies steal your essence. And if you're wondering why I say that, go watch Dark Crystal. It is a great CG animation with puppets that is just way too cool and has a lot of great metaphors for things that we're actually dealing with in our world and some cool metaphysics. I mean, realistically, it's something I'm probably going to use to educate my kids someday, if I have kids. Anyway, I'm gonna go to sleep now on all of this knot hair that I have. Dudes, it's so weird. It's so weird. It's hair, but like different. And it's gonna like grow and fall out and just like behave like normal hair again. Alright. Rip. Later, Gators.